It's about that time to have some people explain themselves. We have all-stars who know all about how to do this. Will and I brought on our really good friends, Brett Fowler and Tyler James, because we wanted the weekend off and we wanted some people who know even more about Kickstarter than we do, who spend more time thinking about Kickstarter than we do. And we talk about it every Friday night, like this evening. If you are watching us live, I hope you're doing great. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, drive carefully, or don't put reds and whites together when you're doing your laundry. That's really important. That's all I know about. Will, how the hell are you?
Doing all right, man. It was a short week, but it was a really long week. So hey, I'm happy to be here.
You put some miles on the tires this week?
More like on the brain. I don't know.
Well, if Will isn't really paying attention to the night, that might be because he's fulfilling his last 71 crossover division packages. So you got 50, about 50 out the door and 70 to go?
Yep, that's about right. Yeah, it's
You'll have that done by morning.
Fun. Oh yeah, I'll have done by the end of the show. Yeah. Not. It's always great. Every package that I put together is going to somebody who's backed the book, backed me, backed the team, and they're gonna get it and read it. It's just, I love making it, and I love doing the Kickstarters. Those are exciting, and I even love fulfillment, even though it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I love the feeling of having fulfilled.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't like being in the weeds, but I hear what you're saying, because it is, you make the book, that's important. You run the campaign, that's important, but until it gets in somebody's hand, it's not a success. So I hear what you're saying, but I can't say I like fulfillment. I just like having fulfilled.
It's kind of
that way about running.
Yeah. I might have felt that 20 some years ago, the last time I ran as voluntarily, but I don't do that too much anymore. Will and Tyler are runners. Brent, do you run?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So the left side of your screen are not runners. Sean Butler says, pretty sure I backed a book from each of these three gentlemen. I'm not really good at math, but it sounds like one of us you need to back on either a campaign that's running live, because we've got two, or hopefully we got one more. But
who's the scoundrel?
Yeah,
exactly.
We certainly appreciate you watching, and even if it's only three of us, we appreciate it, because 75% of this are good people, and I know that they're the ones that aren't talking are. I'm never so sure about myself, but I'm sure I'm happy to be there. But this is Explain Yourself. This is a show about crowdfunding projects, and before I go all the way off the rails, I think we should let you guys do your 30-second pitches for your projects. Brent, since you let's get you into In the Land of the Dragon 2. If I was going past your booth at a comic convention, how would you get my attention?
Okay, so it is a cyberpunk fantasy series about a mercenary named Kenzo who is tasked with kidnapping a child by these two warring corporations, and this child is the key to the balance, to shifting the balance of power between these two warring corporations. So throughout issue 1, the opposite corporation is hunting him down. They've sent cybernetic assassins and ninjas and all kinds of gangsters against him. It's a frenetic paced, high action, violent comic book. And going into issue 2, now the corporation that hired him is also hunting him down, and even his closest allies are after the bounty that's on his head. So
nice. Now there's no violence in sync, Tyler. So I don't know how you're going to
none at all
follow that up.
All ages.
Yeah. Usually crime horror is kind of one of those genres that like Hollywood loves because you can do them on the cheap. But if sync was ever made, and I think it has been optioned, but if it ever gets made into something, like, I think half of the budget would just be blood.
Yes.
and the copious amounts that artist Alex Cormack loves to heap upon on readers. But yeah, Sync's got a little bit of that in it. Yeah.
All right. So if I hadn't known what was in there, how would you get my attention at a comic convention?
Yeah, so Sync is a crime horror series that takes place in a bizarre funhouse mirror type version of Glasgow, Scotland, which is the native home of John Lees, who is an award-winning writer and the co-creator of Sync. He's partnered up with Alex Cormack, who is definitely one of the top horror artists working in comics right now. Besides Sync, he has done Road of Bones and Sea of Sorrows for IDW, and is just an amazing storyteller. And so Sync is sort of like Sin City mixed with Castle Rock. It's a series of, and one of the cool things about it is that each issue is has been a standalone tale that tells a complete story from start to finish in 24 pages or thereabouts. But they all share this common location, which is called Sink Hill. And what I'm really excited about is with this issue and specifically with the next 5 issues, the next volume, what has been a series of sort of distinct stories, almost anthology style, all taking place in this world, are actually going to start to come together, and you will sort of realize the mad genius of John Lee is that he's actually been telling one big, dark, twisted, scary as hell story this whole time. And so, John was busy over the pandemic. He wrote the next 2 volumes of Sync. So I'm like 10 issues ahead of even where we are. And I know what's coming. And I'm just like so excited to get it out there. And so, we're thrilled to be back on Kickstarter after a nice pandemic long break, basically, to be advancing this story, which I'm just so thrilled to be a part of getting it out there into the world.
Absolutely. I'm going to let you share the page. I'm going to pull it up and it should pop right in. And while you take us down the page and tell us about the Kickstarter campaign, I don't know if we've talked to you about this. What were your first conversations with John or with John and Alex about this book? How did this come to Comics Tribe?
So you mean originally, like way back when?
Way back when, yeah. They, I think we talked to Alex about how he got on board, but you as the publisher of Comics Tribe, how did Sync become part of your inventory?
Yeah, so I mean, John Lees is somebody that has always had an open door at Sync. We published the very first comic he ever wrote, which is called The Standard, which is a 5-issue superhero miniseries. And that was one of our sort of 3 books that Comics Tribe launched into the direct market with way back in 2012, like 2013-ish. So I've been working with John for a long time. He followed up The Standard with a series called And Then Emily Was Gone, which did very well for us. And it was the first time we sort of did a divergence from the whole like superhero books, and we did something in the horror genre, and it was a very peculiar, like interesting title that ended up becoming like far and away our bestseller at the time. And so that kind of opened our eyes to the possibility of like, maybe we'll hit some genres and do some things that Marvel and DC don't have totally buttoned up. And so that sort of got us moving in the horror direction. And so I had also then worked with John on another mini series, and I actually worked with John and Alex on a mini series that I co-wrote with John called Oxymoron: The Loveliest Nightmare. And so, absolutely loved how that series came together. Super proud of that book. And so when John had something else and something that and wanted to work with Alex, kind of a no-brainer. But that being said, John also put together a hell of a pitch package and sort of had the first 5 issues sort of outlined and had just put together just a terrifying little pitch document. And I'm like, yeah, this could be something. And but I can remember like the first thing that Alex did for Sync was do a picture of Mr. Dig, who was and did this like iconic image of just a badass dude in a fox mask with a bloody shovel and just kind of standing there. And that's all he had. But he printed up like 10 prints of it at a Boston Comic-Con or something. And people were just buying the print. There was no book, no thing, didn't even say Sync. It was just like, I want that. And so I'm like, a star is born right there. And fast forward to today, and there are multiple human beings walking around with Mr. Dig tattoos on their bodies. So, so it's one of those things where like, when you see it, and one of the benefits, like I'll be finally getting back into conventions this year. One of the benefits of conventions is like you get to really market test stuff and see, what people resonate with. And a little tip is when you see the eyeballs like light up, lean into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you also have the blue van. You have like two archetypical like images for one property, and there are other, and that's just two of like 8 different stories moving around this town. But you've got two like these really iconographic.
John Long jokes is he's like, my goal is to get Sync big enough so that we can actually do Bumblebee novelty butt toys, which were featured in Sync 10. They haven't quite taken off just yet, but
to his mouth to God's ears.
Yeah, exactly. But that is something that, like, when you think about properties like Game of Thrones, right? Like, Game of Thrones has multiple entry points, multiple slogans, multiple iconic things about it, right? And so you got to have one I feel like you got to have at least one to get people in the door. But if you can, especially as a series evolves, like add iconic elements. I also think of like The Walking Dead, where you'll see people cosplaying as Negan, but he didn't show up until years down the line, right? But that's one of like the barbed wire bat is one of the iconic elements of that series. And so I think John is very good at that. And with this episode, so with this series coming back, one of the challenges of the Kickstarter is that actually this first issue kicks off with all new characters and sort of a completely fresh story. And so we sort of took a gamble at let's lean into one of the iconic elements of this new story and the introduction of a brand new villain, who is the Gorbals vampire Iron Tooth Jack. And but Alex, crushed the image of that. So, I'm hoping that we've got another hit on our hands here with this character.
I'm not too worried about you guys, but let's go down the page and hopefully get you a couple more backers to just padding, nice soft pad.
Yeah. So I mean, a couple things like another thing that I think is cool about this book is actually the protagonist is a woman and I believe her 60s or late 60s, and it's a woman who's basically lived her whole life in Sink Hill, and when she was a child she was terrorized by her own boogeyman, who was this vampire, and kids went missing, but it's the kind of thing that it was so long ago that most people have forgotten the legend or never believed it at all. But when her neighbor's boy goes missing, and she starts having these premonitions, she knows in her bones that Jack is back, and that evil like that never will never stop. You have to stop it. And so it's kind of a cool thing of having like a crotchety B. Arthur type as the protagonist in this one. But I think fans are gonna recognize like John's humor that he runs through these series. Like it's so dark, it's so bloody, it's so violent, but it's also funny as hell. And that's something that John is able to do very well. Yeah, there's the tattoo.
You guys were on Kickstarter with what, a Mr. Dig one shot not too long ago, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the Mr. Dig one shot is sort of like a bridge book between Sync Volume 2, and then this is the start of Sync Volume 3. So we launched that at the very end of 2020 and got it out in middle of 2021. And so that was like a 64-page interlude. And John is like very particular about like how Sync, like John's got a little OCD in him, and so like one of the things is like all of the stories in Sync in the proper series have to take place in Sync Hill. Like that's the location, that's where they all happen. And they've all also been sort of very sort of linear. Like we don't do a lot of flashing back and jumping around in different locations and things like that. And so, but because the Dig was a one shot and sort of its own like thing, he was like, okay, we can do this and we can do flashbacks and sort of tell the origin story of that character. And so that's something like we've got a rough map of where Sync is going. And I think the full Sync series will land somewhere between 25 and 30 issues, but there will also be likely one or two more of these sort of one-shot, longer graphic novella things that'll be sprinkled in. And this is kind of I see this as potentially John Lees's, like, you know, I hope it's he looks at it as his opus when it's all said and done, and something that he'll, you know, he would always be willing to return to Sync Hill and tell stories. But it's pretty cool in that, like, there is like this grand design that he's building towards that is going to be pretty satisfying for people that stick with it from the very beginning.
And it's such a cool story too. And for anybody that is new to this, before they started on Sync, Alex was telling us he flew over and visited Glasgow for like a week or two just to kind of let it all seep in, so that when he drew it, this, you know, American guy didn't just, you know, I don't know, watch Outlander and decide that that's what the buildings look like. But I think it's so cool that they met up and did that, you know, quote unquote field research.
Yeah. I think he was like, you know, relatively newly married at the time, or his wife had just got pregnant or whatever, and she's reading the script for Sync 1, and she's like, wait a minute, we're going here? But yeah, Alex crushes it, and that reference really did pay dividends. We had a guy coming in to do some work on our roof, and I'm upstairs and I hear somebody talking, and I hear the accent, and I'm like, is John Lees downstairs? I'm like, no, it wasn't John Lees, but it was a guy from Glasgow originally, and I gave him the book. He's like, oh yeah. He like recognized the locations and everything, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, you know, got some cool covers. We're doing four variant covers this time. Two from Alex, actually. That's the standard one. We've got CP Wilson on a plushy style variant. We've got Louis Joyce on a psychedelic holofoil Virgin, and then Alex is doing we have this is cool vampire image for the metal cover.
Nice.
Yeah, that's gonna kill metal.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I remember listening to, I guess it was a last year episode of the Comics Launch podcast, which you've been doing for, you know, several years now. And you were talking specifically about the number of variant covers. What's the average?
Yeah.
And if I remember right, you're way under the average.
I am. And I mean, I had Ron Z on the podcast 2 weeks ago. And he couldn't tell me how many actual full variants he had for his latest launch. It was somewhere in the 50s, he thought.
So he was barely doing variants this time. If he was in the 50s, this was like, oh, I'm going to take it easy.
but even after, you know, like even as I was trying to like squeeze that out, he was like, well, but then if you count the one-offs and the one of ones and the two of twos and then all the different permutations, like, yeah, it's something else. And I feel like that is like it's definitely a style of launch. I don't know that I don't know that there's the same appetite for it if it doesn't also involve like T and or A.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is super important to bring up, because I do know somebody who on the first campaign had 12 to 15 covers, and they weren't you know, going for that type of a thing, although one of their covers was. And you know, we're talking behind the scenes, it's like, I'm not really selling a lot of these, and we're like, well, it's not just having a lot of variants, it's having a very specific style of variant. If you're in that TNA, yeah, you want the one with the it's always a girl, so I'll just say the girl clothed, the girl unclothed. And hey, if you want to do one with dudes, I say do it. There has to be an untapped niche on Kickstarter, so do it. But have the cartoony one, have the cosplayer if you can get the cosplayer, but I wouldn't do 40 covers unless there was a whole lot of nipple action happening.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we've pushed the envelope a little bit with Happy Hill. All in, I think we might have had 13 or 14 covers. But that includes some like retailers where we did special partnerships with, and just, you know, Joe himself had a lot of times Joe will like draw a cover, like, I hate it, but we'll still use it. And draw another one, hate it, still use it. And like, they're all great, but you know, he can't always, like, he wouldn't always land on it. So when you have an artist that's willing to, you know, go above and beyond, that definitely helps.
Yeah. So what you're telling us all is to hire artists or give co-creators that are their own worst critic, because then you get a lot of free covers.
Absolutely. Like my buddy Matt Zollman, who you know, I worked with a long time ago on a book called Epic, and he's actually working on new pages of continuing right where it left off way back when. But he was like, yeah, I'll throw my hat in the ring to do a sync cover, and he sent over like 3 like mostly done 2 or 3 mostly done things. I'm like, we could use them all, man, just one way or another. So,
Nice.
keep it going.
It's nice to have an embarrassment of riches. Sean Butler says in the chat that the Red Tin #1 metal cover that was recently offered is a top 5 all-time cover for him. So,
oh, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you picked up one of those. You know, I don't even have one of those, and I wrote the damn book. Yeah, I think we only did like 25 of those, but and that was, we were one of the first metals that we released. But yeah, I absolutely love what CP Wilson did on those covers, and it looks just great in metal. So, yeah.
As if someone is listening to this for the first time and they're like, okay, this sounds interesting, I want in. Do you have tiers where they can get the hardcover volumes? Do you have any of the original floppies left? What would you tell people to catch up on sync with? And I guess part B of that question is, this is the start of a new volume. Is this a nice jumping on point where they can just kind of test it and find out if they like it? Although we all want them to buy it all, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, sync is definitely the kind of series where like the nice part is just about every issue is a clean jumping on point. But that being said, background characters become stars, and then stars become background characters in future issues. And so like the obviously, like the more you've read, the more you get rewarded for reading more. But yeah, like, you know, you can jump in, grab a digital copy of the new issue at a pretty low price, and then this issue, it's a 48-page book, and it also comes with a campaign exclusive metal trading card. So that starts at 20. The most economical way to get all caught up and also not take up a lot of shelf space is we have a soft cover tier where you can get the Sinks Volume 1 and 2 soft covers that collects issues 1 through 5 and then 6 through 10 respectively. Also get the Mr. Dig one shot, which is a 64-page graphic novella, and then get the new issue. And I think that's that's actually the cheapest way to get it. We also do have, if you're a comic book nut and need the single issues, we have single issue catch-up tiers. And then I think there are a few hardcovers left for the hardcover tier, but we're actually running pretty low on the Volume 1 hardcover.
All right. You heard that, right, people? Running low on the hardcover. All right. Now I know where you got to go. Got to get the hardcover. Get the thing that's running out, people.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you said this would probably go in that 25 to 30. So you're looking at a 5 to 6 volume full series with a couple, kind of like a Mr. Dig thing whenever they come to you. And have you seen the map to all of this, or is John just give you the the volume as they come in?
Yeah, so John's written through issue 20, and so and then issue 3 is another one of those Sink like OMG moments. We've had a couple of them in the series where like big reveals happen or whatever, but like the third issue of this third volume is one where you start to see like the roadmap and the runway and how things are coming together, because as characters that were stars of their own issues start to become joined and there's a bigger mission at play. And so I kind of see where the roadmap is going. Like I'd actually like, if it was up to me, I'd probably want John to extend it even more, because like, I just think it's really great, but I think he has a pretty tight end game in mind now. So I do not know in my publishing role, I do not know like the end game, but there's sort of like issue 20. When I got done with it, I'm like, that was Battle of the Bastards right there. To use a Game of Thrones reference, and just like, okay, there's like, you could see where in the whole arc that that happens, and stakes just get raised like to a whole nother level.
As long as you have the dire wolf come down on the wall, I'm happy. I might have been the happiest I was watching TV in the last 30 years, watching the dire wolf go back on the walls in the north. So so give me that. You're speaking my language when you bring up Game of Thrones.
Well, Tyler,
you definitely did plenty of recording on that subject, right?
Yeah. Sync has been coming out in the direct market too. So it's not Kickstarter exclusive. And as an indie creator, so I'm obviously very interested in this. Traditionally, as an indie creator, comic shops, they're not hostile. They're more, they don't have the bandwidth, to sort through, every comic that's coming out. They barely have enough bandwidth to, do the traditional big 5 or 6, 7 or 8 publishers, right?
Yeah.
So, how does that affect kind of your plans, is for Kickstarter and for the direct market? How do you kind of balance those?
Yeah. So, we're sort of pivoting a little bit and changing our approach. The idea, like the grand vision, if you rewind like 5 years ago or so, about how I thought things should work, is that I thought that, Kickstarter is a great issue 1 launch vehicle and launching pad. So launch, like do a Kickstarter launch to launch a new series, and then use that momentum into the direct market. And then hopefully it takes off there, and you'll be able to sort of serialize issues 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then come back to Kickstarter and do and blow it out for the graphic novel collection, right? And that seemed like if that worked, that would be great, right? If you could plan for that. The challenge is, for most indie titles, if you do that, you're going to see a diminishing return for each subsequent issue, to the point where, you're lucky if the 5th issue just going through the direct market can pay for itself, just for the printing, let alone any of the marketing costs, creative costs, all the other stuff, just like trying to break even and everything like that, when you're selling a $4 or $5 book at 60% off, and and comic shops are the focus. And so that's kind of been a little bit of struggle. Like it's a struggle to have an issue 1 that does pretty well between the Kickstarter and the direct market, but then sort of have issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, issue 5 diminishing returns on each of those, and then hope you can dig yourself out of it, like for the trade. And so, but we kind of stuck with that model for a long time. But because I never, as much as I've sort of thought about Kickstarter and studied Kickstarter going in, the idea of serializing a book and doing each issue on Kickstarter was something that doesn't really work well with the direct market, where they want books to come out every single month.
Yeah, only an idiot would do that, right, Will?
Yes, that's right. Only an idiot would serialize on Kickstarter.
Well, no. But it actually turns out that serializing on Kickstarter makes a ton of sense, as long as you're not confining yourself to trying to come out in the direct market at the same exact time. And so, for the first 2 volumes of Sync, that's what we did. We did issue number 1 on Kickstarter. Issues numbers 2 through 10 came out in the direct market, and then we also did Kickstarters for volume 1 and volume 2. Sync actually was kind of the rare example where we actually saw orders increase between issues 4 and 5, and so issues 3, 4, and 5, the order numbers all went up. But then there was a long break, and so when we came back with Sync 6, it did well, but it still did not do great. And we definitely sort of missed the Kickstarter infusion of funding, as well as just the ability for to make as much of an impact as we wanted. So this 3rd volume, what we decided to do is invert it a little bit, where we are no longer trying to do a crowdfunding for a book that's going to be going out to backers and going out to comic shops at the same time. The books that backers are going to be ordering on Kickstarter will never go through Diamond. They'll never go through the direct market. So these are Kickstarter exclusive, extra content, extra bells and whistles, premium paper stock. We just upgraded and foil enhanced the cover of even the lowest price print cover. So these are going to be real collector's items, and we're going to come back to the direct market probably when issue 5 is done, and then we're going to do a $5 version of the book that probably has a lower paper stock and just more economical version, smaller page count than what you're getting in here. And we're going to launch that through the direct market when the book is already done, so that we can just come out monthly and feed the direct market. So Kickstarter backers are getting this book in advance as well. But what we may do for the next time we launch on Kickstarter for Sync, the next launch will likely be for a Sync 12 and 13 joined book, so like a deluxe edition, and it'll kind of get its own name as well. But it'll be 48 or 52 pages or something like that, and it'll be a thicker, more of the story for one launch, because I don't necessarily want to do Kickstarters for every single issue, because that takes up a lot of bandwidth and everything like that. And so like, I'm kind of seeing like issue number 1s or bringing back a series like that get Kickstarter launch. But then if we can do 2 issues at a time and just make it again, lean into it for the Kickstarter launch, that's kind of splitting the difference in a way that at least we're going to try it for this volume and see how that goes. And
in my own mind, that makes people's shipping costs more efficient, because you're paying $8 for shipping at the lowest tier, $5 to $10, whatever it is. Whether you're getting 1 book, 2 books, almost up to 4 books, it's the same price.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just doing my, closing up my books for 2022, and like the amount of money that gets spent on like Gemini flash mailers, just to print these things. So yeah, and we have had some backers be like, hey, can't justify coming out of pocket so much for all of these shipping charges, and I totally understand it.
Yeah, especially outside of the States. I mean, it can be rough. Although the Pirates ship, if you're starting this and you haven't, the Pirate ship exporting discount
simple export rate
has really helped a lot. I mean, something like $10 to $15 for most international
Absolutely.
packages. So look into that if you haven't already. I'm gonna guess Tyler might have either know that or know something even better. You've done 1 or 2 of these campaigns, huh, Tyler?
Yeah. This is campaign number 30. So.
Wow.
30 times the charm.
Wow. All right. Well, it's doing awesome. Let's get into the Land of the Dragon, and then I'm gonna basically let you guys talk about what makes a beautiful campaign page. So I guess leave. I'm gonna take the page. You know what? Please stop sharing it, because I think if I take the page out, then you go away. I think we found that out one week the hard way. But so Brent, in the Land of the Dragon, so catch us up with where this book came from, where how you got the creative team together, and where the first idea for it came.
Yeah, so the creative team, they're an Italian studio, and it's Luca Frigerio writes it, and Lorenzo Ree and Stefano Ronconi do the art and coloring respectively. And the way we came about this book was through Federico Sabatini, actually. So he is the artist on my book, The Last Ember, and he's friends with Luca. So he introduced us, and they had a book to pitch to us. It wasn't right for us, but it kind of opened the door to talk to Luca about other books. So this was the second book that Luca pitched to us, and it just fit more of what we typically do. We're more fantasy based. This is a little bit of a stretch for us, but the art just looked so good that we were just like, and the story was cool, so we decided to take a chance on it. So yeah, Federico made the introduction, and he actually did covers for both issues. This main image is actually his cover for this issue. So yeah, that's how we came to work with them, and we've actually done this book and the Steampunk Carol with them, and we've talked about a few other projects possibly in the future. They are actually helping us get some of our stuff in the international market over in Europe.
Nice.
So it's been a fortuitous relationship between us and Luca and his studio and everything. So, but yeah, that's how we came to be. So, and we're happy to be publishing it.
So they come to you. Do they say, "I've got this idea," or do they say, "I've got a 5-issue"? Like, what do they bring to you when they're pitching? Do they just pitch, "I want to do a cyberpunk," and that gets you, or do they have to come with a lot more information before you give a yes?
Yeah. So every idea that he pitched to us, he did a pitch packet. Basically, it was a PDF with a handful of pages, some write-ups, some character sketches, things like that, kind of the direction of where the book was going. Most of the stuff that he does, he has a bunch of different projects at a bunch of different publishers, and most of the stuff he does is like 4 to 5 issue miniseries, and that's what this is as well. So that's basically what it was. It was just a general overview of what the story was and what it was about and the main characters and that kind of thing. And this one just resonated with us more than the previous one that he had pitched to us. So.
Mm-hmm.
But you've with Last Ember Press, I mean, kind of your signature book is The Last Ember, you know, but you've kind of branched out. I mean, Lisa's writing a couple.
Bloom
You've
Pretty,
got
yeah.
Bloom Pretty. You've got oh, what's the steampunk one? I can never remember the name. of
Pneumatic Cases.
Yeah.
Pneumatic Cases. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I mean, how much expansion do you see kind of Last Ember Press, you know, stretching out to? I mean, what's your max bandwidth? Are you going to do 30 books, man?
That's an interesting question because we've gone back and forth on it. There were times where we were like expanding, and then there's times where we're like pulling back and saying, okay, let's narrow our focus a little bit. I think we're at a comfortable place right now, especially with Lisa's book, my book, the book we're writing together, Curiouser, and then just a couple of things on the Fringe miniseries like that. I think our main focus is on those 3 books, The Last Ember, Bloom Pretty, and Curiouser, and then we'll throw stuff like this in around.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where our bandwidth is most comfortable right now. So like this is the only other series that we're currently actively doing. So Pneumatic Cases just wrapped up. We'll be doing a trade for that soon. And yeah, so and we did the graphic novel Steampunk Carol with Luca and Lorenza. And yeah, so I don't know. In the future, if we continue to grow, if we, you know, it just depends on the project. Like if a really cool project comes to us and we're like, okay, we got to do that, we'll make room for it. But I think we're comfortable place because we're also doing, as that image shows, we're also doing other stuff outside of comics, yeah, puzzles and diamond paintings and all this. And we're working on a couple of tabletop games and different things. So yeah,
and that's under the Torch Knight Games tag, correct? Okay,
that's correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you also letter some books here and there and do Kickstarter pages.
I do. Yeah. I letter Crossover Division.
What? I've never heard of that book.
I would ask when you sleep, but I know that it's during daytime.
You don't.
Yes. Yeah.
No, if the sun's out, Brant's asleep. But if the moon's out, he is working his tail off.
I went to bed about 11 a.m. today. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah. Went to bed early. Good boy. Good boy.
Right?
So that's staying up late for Brant.
It was a little bit late for me, actually. Yeah. So.
Well, you know, we asked Tyler, you know, about the direct market. What do you see for Last Ember?
Have you dipped your
Press
toes
in the
or
direct market?
It is on the horizon, but it's still a little bit in the future for us. We talked about it a few years ago, and we like looked up all the information and everything, and we just decided we weren't ready for that yet. I think we're getting closer now. Bloom Pretty is probably going to be the book that we lead with. So that and maybe The Last Ember. But yeah, that's definitely something we've talked about a lot. It just has the timing has to be right for us, and we have to have the right content to put there. And so we're going to wait until we've got a few more issues of both of those before we tackle that. So maybe the next year or two.
Gotcha. But and you also mentioned international markets. Are those more aligned with, say, you know, collected editions, or is that more, you know, single issues like, you know, we would see on Kickstarter or the direct market here?
Honestly, I'm not sure yet. They the publisher that we talked to is a French publisher, and they were interested in specifically Bloom Pretty and The Last Ember. And the talks are kind of still going on. We sent them first the previews, and they were like, we want to see more. So we sent them the whole book, and we haven't heard back from that yet. So I'm not exactly sure how they're going to approach it, if it's going to be single issues or a trade. Either way, I think I'd be happy with it. So
if my experience with Ludo is they'll be looking for one long volume a year, because when we started out, this American who used to get 12 issues and an annual every year of X-Men, was like, hey, Ludo, do you want to do a comic series? And Ludo said yes. So I offered in my own head, without verbalizing this, we'll do about 10 issues a year. will be done in
You
4
can
years.
take 2 months off.
Yeah, because I don't want to
Just
burn
two.
this poor guy out.
Right.
And in his head, he said yes to doing one 42-page volume a year, which is what they publish in France. So we were so green, neither one of us knew to ask the other one what we were saying when we said, would you like to do a comic book series? So I'm going to guess if they're a French publisher, they're going to be looking for that one 44-page volume book a year. But if you can give them longer, it'll probably be good. But I wouldn't expect to be sending too many single issues out to that market.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Bloom Pretty's kind of perfect for that because it is an oversized book. So there's Federico's cover.
The covers on this are extraordinary. They are so friggin' vibrant.
We lucked out. We were working with some talented creators. So we got this is Federico's, who's doing Moon Knight right now for Marvel. This is a artist we worked with for the first time, Lorenzo Di Santo, and he actually did 2 covers for us. And at first, when we saw this one, we were like, that might be pushing it a little bit much for our audience, but we were like, but it's kind of funny. So we were like, let's do it. Let's try it. Baby with a bunch of dismembered fingers popping around, but it's a cool looking cover, I gotta say.
So is this one.
Yeah. Lorenza did this, and she was like, I got to use all the greens. She gave us like 4 different color variations, and we're all like, yeah, let's go with the green. And she was like, all right. I wanted to put all the green into it. So that one's
that's
cool.
even got some cool noir vibes to it too.
Yeah. And she did for issue 1, she did the Akira homage cover. If you guys remember, that was like the pink and purples, and she really likes to push it with the colors. So, and she's also the artist on Steampunk Carol. And then this is the main cover by the interior team. So
nice.
Yeah, really happy with all the covers. Yeah, with your artist issues there with not defining and everything with Last Ember, I finally got to work with Federico, and he did 1 issue of Hunted, and then it was like almost immediately, it seemed like maybe a month later, he was getting Marvel work, and it was like, oh. And so now he's been consistently working with Marvel and stuff, and he's fantastic though, but he's always making time for stuff for me, so I really appreciate that. I know his schedule is very busy.
There's something nice about helping somebody get up to the big leagues. And you're not jealous, but you're like, darn, I really wish you were still drawing mine.
Right.
Yeah. You're so happy. And also, maybe I wish it took 6 more months for that call.
Yeah. No, thankfully he's still doing The Last Ember, but just, we're slowing down the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I think the one of the wonderful things about Kickstarter backers and readers is they kind of don't punish you for delays, whereas the direct market reader does. If you're not, you have to be a shark in the direct market. You have to be moving or you're going to die. And Kickstarter, it's recommended to come back and make sure people know that you're there. You'll lose some people if you take too long, but as long as you're putting out 2 to 4 a year, people remember you, and you don't lose too many stragglers.
Well, and and Tyler, I know Tyler's got a lot of data around Kickstarter because he's the data wonk, which is awesome. But we've seen almost the opposite kind of, at least anecdotally, behavior in Kickstarters where the first issue is starting off with fewer backers, and then you gain readers with every subsequent issue, whereas in the direct market, you're big number 1, and then you start losing readers. So, is first off, anecdotally, does that match the data? And how awesome is that for Kickstarter?
Yeah, I mean it's phenomenal, and it is also like a testament to the comics community and some of the uniqueness, I think, of comics on Kickstarter. There's no other category where that has as many repeat creators as comics. And the serial nature of how we do our thing makes that make a lot of sense, right? You compare it to technology projects or music or film. Like nobody's doing the output in a serial format quite like comic creators. And so like there is a lot of advantage to being able to start and then the one of the factors that has strong corollary to future success on Kickstarter is, well, how'd your last campaign do? And so getting that successful campaign under your belt and getting products out to backers just increases the likelihood that the next one will have a great starting point. And then we know that when your campaigns do have a nice starting point, that puts you on the radar of what is a pretty big market of people that are just regularly shopping and discovering new stuff. You know, even like we had our most backed Comics Tribe Kickstarter last year, but by the end of the campaign, more people were first-time Comics Tribe backers than returning backers.
Wow.
Now on day one, it was like 90% returning,
right,
and 10% new. But over the length of the launch, attracted a lot of new first-time checking us out backers, and so that, you know, and so but as creators, we can always find something to think about. It's like, oh, what happened? I lost so many of my past backers.
Of course,
right.
You know, so many percentage of everyone that has ever backed me has come back for this one, and then we can feel bad about it. But what's nice is that trend line tends to go up. But also, like I will say, it's not a linear thing. So I do know some creators, like if the fourth launch doesn't quite live up to the third launch, and even you've seen it, Kevin, with Tart, you know, like it's not been a specific, like, straight linear thing.
Yeah,
everyone, you know, the nice kismet of the economy plus a kick-ass cover design plus you know the other projects that are launching at similar times that you're crossing over with. Like, there's so much that goes into a successful campaign, but I think overall the trend lines are pretty good. I saw a creator post just saying how it seems like Kickstarter has been a lot harder this month than, say, in the past, and you know, you get like 2 dozen, 3 dozen creators like chiming in saying, yeah, I had a struggle this last one. Like, the nice thing is, like, most people's struggles is still getting funded.
Right. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
some of them are coming down to the wire a little bit, and
I think I was listening to Charlie Stickney and Pat Shan do a Twitter Spaces, and I believe Pat said it. He said, one of the things that we've done this to ourselves, we've gotten so good at getting our people there on day one that day two is no longer a good day. You used to have 2 to 3 good days at the beginning of a campaign, and then 2 to 3 at the end, and then it was dead in the middle. Well, now our readers are so smart and so on it. They are there on day one. Well, now you've got to start finding the new people on day two, and we're mad because we're not getting the 30 people on day two and the 25 people on day three when we've already got 80 of those people on day one, in addition to the 120 that we used to get. But no, we can't see that.
Human beings normalize success like nobody else.
Well, if you want to not feel bad, this came up earlier in the chat, but there wasn't a good spot for it. But Sean put, "In the Land of the Dragon is one of the most beautiful books, and Sync is bar none one of the best ongoing series in comics." So, Brent, Tyler, if you wanted to feel bad, you're not allowed to. Not when someone's saying that about your comics.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah,
you gotta send Sean some goodies, Brent.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
Just one more comment. Shawnee says, you get those return backers, and that hopefully spreads the word to pull in new folks, which reminds me of something that some guy named Tyler James once said: a crowd attracts a crowd.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is, and this is something that, like, I think most people have gotten now, but there used to be like this feeling of like, well, those big campaigns, they don't need the money. And like, Speed has never played any part into it. Like, people thought that that's what it was about. Oh, this is a platform for creators who need the money to do stuff. It's like, I mean, in one sense, yeah, but that's never the impetus for the backer. You know, backers love helping out and supporting things that they want to exist in the world.
Right.
And you know,
like a Keanu Reeves comic book.
Yeah.
He does not need that comic book. He did not need that money, but God bless him, he came to it
and brought a crowd.
He brought a crowd. He destroyed the comic, got made, and guess what, guys? That's amazing. You know, we want more Keanu's to come to Kickstarter and put books out. So
Brandon Sanderson. I mean, oh my God, Kickstarter even studied and published some data around the number of backers that he brought new to the platform, and then those backers, what they backed. You know, they reached out and backed more. I mean, so,
did you say he brought nude backers?
Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
Let's talk about the Terry Moore project. Sorry. I mean, but you know, with creators that have already built these really large fan bases over time, you know, it benefits all of us when they come to the platform, because you know, these new backers, not nude, you know, they say, well, look at all this cool stuff here, you know, and I think, Kevin, you may have said this, that, you know, or maybe this was Charlie or somebody, but Kickstarter's like the biggest comic shelf on the planet, and we all get the same amount of shelf space. And you know, their algorithm does such a great job of recommending other books, and then we as creators on the platform are always, you know, pointing out other books. You know, if Brant's doing an update, he's going to point out, you know, John's book or Ryan's book. Sorry, in Rancid,ville, An Odious End, and Sunmaker #3. Yeah. Got to get our plugs in there. But it's exactly, Shawnee. You're absolutely right. And I kind of have a sneaking suspicion. I don't have any inside knowledge or really much in the way of expertise, but I'm going to just put this out there anyway. So
let's do it.
I feel like we're going to get more and more bigger names in comics coming to Kickstarter within the next couple of years. I just have a hunch. And I mean, if you look at the way the direct markets move, you know, is it contracting? Is it not contracting? What's the direct market doing? You know, I love comic shops. I really do. But the amount of effort that I would have to put in to get one copy of Crossover Division or one of the diary trades in there, it just doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable for me, because if I would be doing that full time with so little reward from it, you know, as just an indie creator, not as a publisher, you know, Last Ember or Comics Tribe. So I think a lot of comics creators, you know, we had the big Substack thing, which was a year or two ago. I think a lot of established creators are looking at Kickstarter and making plans.
Quite honestly, I think Substack thing actually took a tire iron to the knee of some of those creators coming to Kickstarter. Scott Snyder had just had a very successful campaign, and then he was one of the first people on Substack. So I'm betting if 20 of those big name creators that Substack paid, I bet you 18 of those were planning on those books going on Kickstarter, but they got the money up front easier. That literally, you said, I have no information of this, but the way it was trending to where it kind of, like, the graph just dropped. I bet Substack did break that up. But I asked Brant and Tyler on, if somebody has never done a Kickstarter page or really feels like they're kind of in a rut, what are some of your best practices to make a Kickstarter page just pop? Obviously, you make the best book you can with the best art you can, and you write the copy the best you can. But how can I make my page look better than it already does? What are some of your best practices?
You hire Brant to design.
I mean, that's there's a reason I'm asking Brant. This is something you do on a professional level. You work on my pages.
Yeah.
So yes.
Some of Tyler's even.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So what are you looking for? If I sent you 24 pages of my next comic, and I may, what are you looking for in the images to pop on a Kickstarter page?
Oh man, specific. That's a tough question. Like, I think you're just looking for the most eye-catching, dynamic images to use to scatter across that don't spoil like major plot points, obviously, but you want things to make people stop scrolling for a second, right? You know, whether it's a gorgeous piece of art or whether it's like some, you know, big explosion or some just really cool looking piece of, I don't know, some character work, some location work, anything that like speaks to the story and pulls from what you're trying to tell in that story and connects to it in some, you know, visceral way, I think.
Well, there's a neat trick that you do that I would never have thought of because, well, I'm a writer, I'm not a designer or an artist. But you know, we do variant covers on Crossover Division, and what you do is you just did an animated GIF of all the variant covers, and I'm like, that's freaking genius because that stops them in the, you know what, that stops them in place right there. I want to, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? You know,
right?
I mean, that's awesome.
That's another tip, motion. And I kind of learned that from Tyler. I learned a lot of my tricks from Tyler, honestly. But yeah,
I learned all my tricks from Tyler.
Yeah, I could say the same.
Yeah. Adding any kind of motion, any kind of thing that just, it's not static to the page, I think livens it up a little bit. And it does make you stop for just a second because you're like, oh, well, I got to see what the next, you know, image is, like you said, Will. So yeah, I forget, someone had actually asked me to do animated covers once, and then I just started doing them for most campaigns I did because I was like, well, that's really cool, and you just stick it right up front, and you know, then you got that right away. So
well, you know, animated GIFs that, like, whenever I see them done well on Kickstarter, I'm just like, oh, that looks so amazing. Like sometimes, like, I don't always do them because I don't know if you found, like, Brant, that like sometimes they just stop running.
Yeah.
And I've never like really figured out the rhyme or reason. Like you can fix it by just re-uploading. And then I also don't know if it's like, is it just stopping for you? Like, because you've seen it so many times, or is it something cached? So and then there's also the issue of, you got to make sure that they're not so big that they take forever to load, so that people like that are just scrolling through your page never see them. Right. So like that's always been the balance with the animated GIFs, but when they're done really well, man, they really sing, and you've got some good ones on the In the Land of the Dragon page.
Thank you.
You know, like with Kickstarter page design, it really is getting the balance between, I think, the flash but then also having some heart and substance behind the page as well. Like I had someone send me a page for feedback, and it's been a while since I got one of those pages where I'm like, and the kind of people are like, hey, I read this article that you wrote, and you know, I've been studying it, and here's my page. You got any feedback? And I'm like, did you read my article? Because literally, I had 7 steps here, and you flipped on all 7. You know?
Gosh, Tyler, if only there was a class that someone could take that would make even someone like me, you know, able to do something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it turned you into an old pro there at this point. But yeah, but one of the biggest problems with this page is that, like, there was some flash to it, but there was no like, who's behind this, and why, and what's this person all, and what are you all about, and why should we care? Because I think Kickstarter is different than most other places that's where stuff is being sold online, where, you know, the story and the fact that you're like a person on the other end is trusting you with their money before the thing that they're buying even exists. And so that's why, like, even on campaigns where I'm mostly just project managing, we always try to make sure that there's a face behind the page, someone that is like, this is the person, this human being that you're trusting to bring this thing to life, and making sure that that's somewhere on your page. So
Right.
Getting the team on there, getting good pictures, like showing your face, God forbid, but these are things that I've had to work with a lot of creators over the years who are just like, no, hey, I don't, I'm not photogenic. It's like, it doesn't, you don't all have to be supermodels like us.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is for damn handsome people.
Are you sure there's no alcohol in that?
No, but my eyesight is going in my
you do have the allergy eyes going now.
Yeah. All right. So heart and soul and flash and substance, and mixing them in a way that it feels natural. I think that's actually a really nice, macro level. We don't have time to go through every little tip and this many pixels and this width, but I think something that Tyler puts is tell your story about the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to brag on Brant a little bit here, because there's Brant brings a lot of heart into when he does our page. And we had a panel where Hank was talking to Hector outside of a car door, and Brant turned that into this is your money back guarantee. I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. You're right. I love that. Let's keep doing it. It's on every campaign now.
Yeah, I do think like comic creators, we do have like a natural advantage over most other categories on Kickstarter, because Kickstarter is very much a visual platform, and combining visuals with text. That's kind of our whole
thing. That's what we do, right?
So leaning into that as much as you can.
Absolutely.
I'm also, I've done podcasts on it, and I'm a big, and it's one of those things where like when it's not there, you miss it. But I'm a big social proof fanatic, where I try to like remember that there are like most of the people that hit your Kickstarter page don't know you from Adam or anyone else, and so they're looking for reasons to not trust you with their money. But the more evidence that you can provide that not only can you do this thing, but you've done this thing in the past, or or people have trusted you with other things, or the people that are involved in the project have credentials to deliver on the hyperbolic, like this is awesome stuff. That stuff is so important to bake into your Kickstarter campaign, and going the extra mile to share that there are people other than you that are saying this thing is good. That's where being a part of communities like we're all in, having peers read our books and provide blurbs and other things like that. Like that stuff matters. Now, like it's not like you can go and just get a review from one person that's automatically going to sell your book, but you want to show that you've gone the extra mile to have it so that the world recognizes that this stuff is worth getting in on, and having other people say that. So baking that into your page, I think, is very important.
Unless you're Clay Adams and you have a Brian K. Vaughan quote on your book, right?
Yeah, Clay doesn't really have to ask us for blurbs. He's got that forever. I would have that tattooed on me if I had that.
All right.
Well, a quick question for you guys. Kickstarter is the place to be for indie comics, I feel like. I mean, I know that there's Zoop, there's Crowdfunder, there's BackerKit has their own, stuff. There's Indiegogo. But, Kickstarter is the 800-pound gorilla. But I really feel like, with some of the moves they've made here in the past, they're really listening to the communities, not just comics, but I think they're really interested in comics because we are such a successful, subsection of their business that, I feel like, we're starting to get some improvements. They've got shipping, they've got some easy shipping going on. I haven't tried it, so I don't know anything either way. But, as these improvements start rolling out, I'm hopeful that, we're going to get maybe images for, add-ons at some point, and we're going to get, that are, and some of these things may fundamentally alter that Kickstarter page. So I feel like we as a community are going to have to pivot, once those things change. Have you guys given any thought to that?
Well, I've thought that if they'd let me email all my backers at once, I wouldn't have to pay BackerKit $99. So I could help them take $99 away from part of their competition if they would implement that. I mean,
yeah, but you know what? Like I was thinking about that the other day, Kevin. But I bet you if they did roll that out, I still would pay BackerKit because I'm betting that they wouldn't build it such that I could connect all of the different accounts that I've ended up like launching on. Like
exactly.
Comics Drive, Tyler James, because the Happy Hills under Joe, right?
Happy Hills under Joe, and 2 different Seas for Cthulhu accounts, and so like.
I would say that if I had either of the Seas for Cthulhu accounts, I would pay the $99 because if you get 0.1% of that, you're going to be helping your comic out.
Yeah, I think BackerKit launch like for one of our campaigns like was $24,000 on a $99 investment.
Yeah. Definitely worth the investment.
That was made it pretty easy. Easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Kevin and I have talked a lot about how a vibrant crowdfunding community for comics is good for all of us, but that's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I applaud the creators that are going to Zoop and trying Zoop out, that are trying Crowdfunder because they're blazing a trail for the rest of us. But Kickstarter's what I know, and Kickstarter's where I'm going to stay unless they do something that pushes me away. And Kevin and I have talked about that separately a lot, so we won't rehash that.
They didn't do it, so we're happy.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, it took Kickstarter a solid decade to get where they are now with comics, right? So, I mean, is Zoop or is Crowdfunder or is Indiegogo? I mean, Indiegogo is its own thing, or BackerKit. Are they going to have that much runway? Are they going to be able to survive, or is there going to be something else coming along?
I mean, I've just did an interview with someone that was launching on on BackerKit, and I had the CEO of Crowdfunder on the podcast recently. And Crowdfunder, like, it's built on a platform that's been around for over 13 years. Like that was like developed, I think, even a little bit before Kickstarter, but it was sort of focused in a different space, and they've moved into comics and. If I were Kickstarter, there's a couple of things that Crowdfunder does that I would probably look at implementing, or at least experimenting with. Like one of the coolest things about Crowdfunder is that they have the ability for you to like ask with a simple question or a yes or no, like, hey, here's how much here's what our fees are going to be on the creator. Would you like to cover those fees so the creator gets 100% of your pledge? And
nice.
They get something like 70 or 80% of people saying yes to that.
Wow.
And most of the people that use that platform actually find it's pretty close to free.
10,000
no fees on it, but I'm like, that's really cool. It conceivably could be, considering the 10%, like, and they ask for their fees, or they ask and say, oh, and what about the credit card transaction fees? You want to cover those as well? And a big chunk of people do. So there are some people that like recoup all of their fees on that.
Wow.
But that would be an easy thing for Kickstarter to implement. And so like, it will be interesting to see as these other platforms sort of push the envelopes, like how much of it does Kickstarter end up adopting? Right. I also see like, there are some benefits to the sort of slow and steady ship that Kickstarter can be, in terms of it not just becoming the Wild West or just, you know, doing it all or changing and breaking how the thing goes. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
So CC asked in the chat, do you think that suggests that they're focusing more on comics?
Is that Kickstarter focusing more on comics, or like
I'm gonna get
yeah, I mean Kickstarter just they're gonna fill the
they're hiring a director,
comics outreach position.
This here first, Mark Romero in the comments says Kickstarter is hiring a new director for comics, and they want them to have 8+ years of experience in comics. So well, that's good. I would hope that the person doing it has as much experience as possible, but not so much experience that they shoot down good new ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and another thing, you know, I've had backers tell me, like, look, you know, my credit card won't run.
Yeah.
Can you take PayPal? I can't take PayPal via Kickstarter, but yeah, I'll take PayPal, and we'll figure it out, you know, elsewhere. But, you know, if just a different, you know, alternative payment methods, you know, that would be awesome too, you know. I mean, and I think Crowdfunder takes PayPal, right? Or
yeah,
I think most of the
I'm not sure about Crowdfunder specifically, but they probably do, because Crowdfunder's entire like pitch deck was like, here's the top 25 complaints creators have about Kickstarter. We're just not going to do these things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice.
Well, we've kept you guys up. I know, Brent, you're over in that weird time thing with Will, but Tyler, you're up late. So it's been a great show, and I've adored it. And I could talk to you guys for a couple hours, but I know you have campaigns to run and you're supposed to sleep to do that point. Well. So if you want to hang with Will and I while we talk about some of the campaigns that are still live that have been on, please do. But if it's bedtime, I don't, you know, Tyler, I know that you take care of the son at times while your wife's working, and vice versa. I don't want to keep you up if tomorrow you have the early shift.
Well, I may have the early shift, but this has been a, you know, you said short week, but this has been a long week, because like we finally, after 3 years, got whacked with the COVID bug. And so my boy was home all week when he was supposed to be at school. So yeah, it's been me and my wife trying to get some work done, but mostly recovered. I think I'm at about 92% recovered, but
well, keep resting. That's what everybody told me.
And stir crazy, but I don't know. I got a little bit of drink left in my cup, and I want to make sure that I'm not missing any must check out campaigns. So I'll stick around for a little bit.
All right, beautiful. All right. Brent, you can't go because I know you're not going to sleep for the next 18 hours. Yeah. So you don't have that excuse.
Although he might need to eat lunch, right?
At some point, yeah, but I'm good.
Yeah.
So actually, Will, my Wi-Fi is being really funky. So if I go out, you just take over. But with 4 days left, we've got Max Axel and the Wild Circuit. It's a 16-page one-shot, all ages, kind of a speed racer type of a car race. Just a group of friends in the pandemic decided to make some comics, and it's a super fun one. I would go to Max Axel, and the Axel is spelled AXEL, just to watch the video. They animated the video, and it really is really badass. Cool. Another kid's book, Sheldor the Defender. This is my buddy Todd Kelly. It is The Bestest Boy Has Bitten Off More Than He Can Chew. Basically, it's a book about his own dog protecting the family in a fantasy setting. He hasn't been on the show because he's not like Brant and he can't stay up late. My good buddy Mike Shea is back with Miskatonic High. I used to have this like moniker as the guy who's serialized the most issues of a comic. I'm about to do Tart 15. My buddy's doing issue 17 of Miskatonic High. He's about to lap me like Captain America and Sam Wilson, just screaming on the left, on the left.
Like doing shorter issues.
I guess that's what I have to do. But I love Mike, and if you're going to be beaten, get beaten by the best. So check out Miskatonic High, kind of Buffy high schoolers in the Lovecraft universe.
Let's see, we've got Awakening, a Star Trek inspired sci-fi comic one shot that is ending. Hang on a second, and I'll check. Do you have that one on your
48 hours? I actually missed that as I went down. Yeah. Some guy we know, Ransomville and Odious End. This is the third and final issue of a story of three teenagers up against an evil town council, and there's a murder and a mystery. So do check it out. John Eddingfield Jr. The second, I'm sorry, is just a great dude, and he's the artist and the writer. And if he has a campaign, that means Ryan Kroboth has a campaign.
Exactly.
They are teammates. Sunmaker 1 through 3, also 3 issues and done. So the cool thing about Ransomville and Sunmaker, if you haven't heard about them, you can get the entire series right now and read it all when they come in.
Two of the best dudes around, Ryan and John. So
fabulous guys. Another guy who's okay and wasn't on the show because he was under the weather last week. That guy Charlie Stickney, he's back on here with Galarian Short and Deadly. Now this.
Okay, he's bugged out. So Galarian Short and Deadly is a hardcover collection of all of the Galarian short stories that have been throughout various campaigns, over the last couple of years. And of course, it's got amazing art by Connor Hughes. It's got some great covers, and Romina Morinelli does the art for a lot of the Galarian stories.
Yeah, gorgeous.
It also has I believe, a short story by Mick Byers, who segues me right into A Queen of Mars, number 1 through 3 by Mick Byers. It's an adaptation of the public domain stuff of the Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars series, which is very near and dear to my heart. And Mick does a really awesome job, and you should definitely take a look at that one.
Yeah.
And Brant also is involved with another campaign that's running right now. Yes. And probably some others that you've designed the Kickstarter pages for, but we can talk about those later. Hairology, a celebration of hair, is out. Brant has a short story in there as a writer, and it's by our buddies Phil Falco and Kat Calamia. Phil's my Excel buddy. Yeah, Excel. All right. Anyway, Hairology is an anthology where you've got just an amazing cast of creators dealing with hair. How all kinds of stories. Brant, can you give me a little more insight into Hairology?
Yeah, I mean, you basically said that, but Sterling Gates has a story in it. He wrote Supergirl. Gail Simone saw it on Twitter and volunteered to write a foreword for it, so that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
And it covers a bunch of different issues with hair, different hairstyles, different issues with hair. My story's about balding. So yeah, check it out.
Nice.
Another person that we run a little too late for, John Westhoff, is back on with Drumsticks of Doom and Depowered. So check out those campaigns. John's a great guy, and we understand. We run this late. We're not for everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's all I see there. I mean, we mentioned the Terry Moore.
We got one more. It launched today. It was on the show last week. CC's Mythfall issue 1. It was our first campaign that we had in pre-launch. We talked all about it. It has Egyptian gods and space shenanigans. It launched today, so you can get in on first day of Mythfall, one word.
Super excited about that one. CC's been working on that world building and doing all sorts of background material for that. I know she's so thrilled that
Yes,
it's
that
finally here. So congrats to CC and Mark and their endeavors over there.
Yeah, that came from what she told us was maladaptive daydreaming, which I have been saying every day since then because I don't want to ever forget that term. I love the term maladaptive daydreaming. So thank you guys so much for being on. If you want to give another 30-second pitch on the projects in case somebody is watching on Facebook right now. If they're on the podcast and they got here, they know, but someone might have popped on Facebook. So Brant, one more time on In the Land of the Dragon.
Yeah, In the Land of the Dragon is a cyberpunk fantasy series about a mercenary tasked with kidnapping a child that holds the key to shifting the balance of power between two warring corporations. Got 2 issues available. Check it out.
All right. And nice. Tyler, bring us home with Sync.
Yeah, so go to sync.comicstribe.com, and I'm going to give you the first issue of Sync. If you read the first issue and it's for you, jump in and grab the new campaign. If you read the first issue and you want to, complain to me because you're now having nightmares, take that up with
Well, I would say that if you're getting nightmares from it, you got to definitely read it because that means it worked.
Yeah. So yes, I would definitely check out the book before you buy it. But I think you're going to love this issue. It's a vampire story with a twist, and it really sets up what is going to be a 5-issue murder mystery that will take place over the next 5 issues of Sync. So it's a great jumping on point, and you can get all caught up on the series. I would also say, I think we've got creators watching, and there are people that are interested in Kickstarter, probably launching their own Kickstarter soon. I just put together that I'm pretty happy with a new strategy guide. If you go to Comics Launch, COMIX launch.com/superfunded, one word, superfunded. It's 7 strategies that are sort of in the last couple of years, changes have happened on the Kickstarter platform. Creators are trying new things, and I just highlighted 7 strategies, mostly from creators that are inside the Comics Launch Pro community that you guys have all been a part of. And it's fun seeing the creators that we all network with and cross promote with do cool things, try cool things, learn from them, and make all of our campaigns better. So I encourage you to go grab that free strategy guide if you can. comicslaunch.com/superfunded.
Cool. Yeah, I downloaded it the other day. So awesome.
All right, everybody in the chat, thank you so much for the questions, the comments. Some were pretty darn funny that didn't fit in. So I'm CK. I hope you had a very relaxing night with your wine and other substances, which I won't say because I don't know if you're in a state where those substances are legal or not. But I hope you had a very relaxing evening listening to us talk comics. Tyler, Brant, love you guys. I really appreciate you coming on. And Will, I will talk to you next week.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, boys.